This growing beans activity is an interactive way to learn about what plants need to grow in the optimal condition. This is an activity related to plant biology. Today we will be mainly setting up the different conditions for beans to grow, while students can spend the next few weeks to explore how different conditions will affect plant growth. Through this activity, students will get to predict plant growth, observing plant growth, and determining what plants need to grow most optimally. The concept of photosynthesis is only introduced in 2 to 3 and 4 to 5th graders and not to K to 1st graders. Although this is the slideshow for 4 to 5th graders, you will find version of other grade levels in the Explore Activities page. This is the list of materials you will need per student for a class of 20 students. In order to minimize distraction, do not distribute the materials in the beginning of class. Distribute the material as you get to the step that requires them. In the beginning of this activity, you should familiarize yourself with these 3 conditions. Each condition corresponds to each group. You should divide the class into 3 groups in the beginning of class and assign at least 1 volunteer to each group. Since today is mostly about setting up, most of the class time will be providing students with an interactive learning environment. At this time, 1 volunteer or the volunteer leader will be the instructor of the class. With the help of teachers and other volunteers, the volunteer instructor should have control over the classroom. When students are ready, the volunteer instructor should start off the discussion with the entire class and ask them about what plants eat for food versus what we or other animals eat for food. This is also the perfect opportunity to introduce photosynthesis for 2 to 3 and 4 to 5th graders. Photosynthesis is the process of converting sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide into glucose and oxygen. By asking the question, what chemicals do animals and humans breathe in and out to the class, you can guide students to realize where plants get those materials to perform photosynthesis. Then you can end that discussion by letting students know that although plants and animals are quite different, plants are crucial to animals and Earth. After this initial instruction, it is time to set up for the growing beans experiment. You can now distribute the material to each student and go to their group. For K-1 and 2 to 3 grades, you should help them to write down their group number and their name on their bags. Before students start preparing their cotton balls, you should demonstrate how much water to squeeze out of their cotton balls. For group 1 and 2, you can demonstrate dipping the cotton balls in a cup of water and squeeze out most of the water, at least until the cotton balls are not dripping water anymore. For group 3, you can demonstrate lightly dipping cotton balls in water so that only 1/4 of the cotton ball is wet. When students are dipping the cotton balls, pay attention to how each student is doing, especially students in group 3. Make sure the cotton balls are not too wet. After setting up with cotton ball, you should also demonstrate lining up the bottom of the Ziploc bag with cotton balls. If you see the amount of cotton balls each student has is not enough to completely line up the bottom of the bag, then encourage students to use more cotton balls. After this step, you can instruct students to place 5 lima beans inside the Ziploc bag and on cotton balls. Then seal the bag. After each student finishes setting up their bags, the volunteer instructor can ask the class why we can't fill up the Ziploc bag with all the lima beans, and in which direction students think the plant's roots will grow. This gets students to think about the less obvious condition plants need to survive, which is space for nutrients. Lastly, the volunteer instructor can instruct group 1 and 3 to place their cotton balls and Ziploc bags next to a window with plenty of sunlight exposure, and group 2 to place their Ziploc bags in a cabinet with no sunlight exposure. After students are done putting their beans away, volunteer instructors should ask students to draw what they think their beans will look like 3 days from now, and beans under which condition they expect to grow the most. After this point, volunteer instructors should also remind students to check on their beans every 3 days or so for the next 2 weeks. For K-1 and 2 to 3 grade students, You can ask students to keep these 3 questions in mind, and the questions are on the slide as shown. For 4th to 5th graders, you can ask students to write down these 3 questions and answer them after 2 weeks. If there is extra time left, the volunteer instructor can lead students to play Plan Guess Who. You can refer to the packet for more instruction. This experiment follows closely to NGSS KLS11. Use observations to describe patterns of what plants and animals need to survive. If you need more information regarding this activity or the concepts introduced in the activity, you can refer to the Learn More page at the end of this slideshow.